Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Vera Sabalski. I am the Senior Graduate Advisor at the University of Colorado Department of Mechanical Engineering, and you are here for the PhD student panel so that you can learn from the student perspective. So the way the event will run today is, here we go. We'll start off with some introductions, and I'll remind you of our upcoming deadlines. And then I will introduce and moderate our panel. We have 5 or 6 wonderful. I hear someone. Can you please mute yourself if you hear yourself right now? Anna, can you help mute, please? Thank you so much. Okay, and then we have some prepared questions for our panelists so that they could think about this before the session. And then we'll stop recording to allow the audience members to ask their questions as well, because this event is for you. It's for prospective students looking at our PhD program. Okay, so this is a friendly reminder that our upcoming deadlines are for international applicants December 1st. We have an earlier deadline for international applicants because we need a little bit of time to process your paperwork and translate the transcripts and those kinds of things. Domestic applicants, your deadline is December 15th. And I also listed some incentives that we have for waivers. PhD candidates, if you're domestic, you get an automatic fee waiver, application fee waiver with a 3.4 GPA. International candidates, if a faculty member reaches out to us and lets us know that you're interested in applying, we could provide a fee waiver for you as well. If you have any other questions about that, please let me know. So that's about it for the that portion. I will go ahead and stop sharing and then spotlight our awesome candidates. Spotlight our awesome panelists. Okay, and once I've spotlighted you, can you go ahead and start introducing yourself? We'll go ahead and get started with Mike. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mike. I am a 5th year PhD student. I do fluid mechanics research with Dr. Peter Hamilton, and I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bonnie Sundaram. I am a 4th year PhD student, and I work at the Advanced Medical Technology Laboratory, AMTL, with Dr. Mark Rentschler, and I do soft robotics. And I grew up in Staten Island, New York.
Hey guys, I'm Angie. I'm a 3rd year PhD student. I'm in the Bio-Inspired Perception and Robotics Lab, working under Sean Humbert. And I work with control of soft robots.
Hi everyone, I'm Saurabh Das, and I'm originally from India, but then I grew up in Bahrain, so that is my home, and I work in solid mechanics. My research topic, and it's mainly into bio-inspired mechanics of materials, so that's with Francois Barthelot.
Okay, and I'm adding Austin. There you are. Okay.
Hi, everybody. My name is Austin. I'm a 4th year student here, working on additive manufacturing in Gregory Whiting's lab. And I'm originally from Ohio.
Awesome. Thank you. Do we have any other panelists that are here that I haven't spotlighted yet? You can unmute yourself and let me know. Okay, wonderful. And I guess I should spotlight myself since I'll be moderating. Okay. Never mind. It's not letting me. So I also wanted to let you know that Anna Guy is here, and she's our current student advisor, and she will be helping us with the chat. But to clarify, if you have any questions as a prospective student, please send them to me. You can email Anna, but she'll forward them to me, and that will save you some time. Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, panelists, for giving those introductions. We will go ahead and for introducing yourselves, we'll go ahead and ask the first question then. So why did you choose CU Boulder? Angie, you want to get us started?
Sure. I didn't know if someone had unmuted themselves. So I chose CU mostly because of the people. I had come and visited CU and the lab I was going to be working for. And I just immediately clicked with a bunch of people in the lab area. And then I also really, really liked what my advisor was about. I really was thinking about doing the research he was interested in, as well as I really wanted him as my mentor.
Thank you, Angie. Anyone else? Actually, I'll go ahead and call you out because I think I want all of the panelists to answer this question because I'm curious as well. Saurabh, why did you choose CU Boulder?
It's more about the research interests for me. So I was working in my master's at the School of Mines. That's about 30 minutes from here. And during my research, I kind of aligned myself with soft materials and soft polymers. And I wanted to work something along those lines. And that's when I realized that my professor from McGill, Montreal, he was moving down to CU Boulder as a professor. So my SOP, I submitted that aligned very, very much with his interests. So we ended up joining, and right now I'm happy here with my research. So that's my primary reason. And of course, the people are, of course, they're really good here. They're really beautiful. So that as well.
I like the tip in there, the statement of purpose, the SOP.
Yeah, that's right.
It's always good to reference a couple of faculty that you want to work with, because then actually from the admissions point of view, sometimes those faculty are the ones who look at your applications. So Austin, you want to go next?
Sure. I came to CU Boulder for a couple reasons. One, similar to Angie, I really love the people here, and that was really apparent when I came for the Gears open house, just how much everybody enjoyed spending time with each other, and it didn't feel fake, which was good. And then the second reason I think is for the mountains too. I came because I've never lived anywhere close to mountains before. And this was the first experience with that, and I really loved it and still do.
I asked Austin if he took that picture, and then I saw that Mike showed up with the same one. So I see they're both excellent photographers and very consistent. So
We actually went out at the same day.
Did you? Yeah.
Yeah.
I took my picture walking to work one day. So, but it's not this snowy yet. Vonnie, would you like to share next, please?
Yeah, I'm gonna sound like a parrot, but I I definitely came here because one, I really enjoyed the people that were working at my lab, and my advisor at the time was grad chair, and he just had a lot of great information and great advice for me immediately during our first interview, and so I thought it was a good fit for me. And I'm gonna think of something different. Maybe that hasn't been said. Oh, actually, so I'm interested in going into industry post PhD, and my advisor was very open to that. And he had a similar thought process in his career trajectory. So that was really useful for me.
Yeah, and that's something I learned. Thank you for sharing that. That's something I learned working in this role, that a lot of our PhD students go and work in industry and research and development. They start their own companies, and it's pretty varied. And some do go into academia or academia adjacent or work in research labs. I think, Mike, what about you? Why did you choose CU?
So, I mean, on top of literally everything else that everyone has said, I also really like the collaborative nature of the department. I hadn't seen that before, but it was something that I knew I liked, but I realized how much more I liked after seeing it in works, like visiting CU, seeing how like different proposals are being submitted with like combined faculty in the same department. I thought that was really cool and a really good mindset where I wanted to be doing my PhD.
Awesome. Thank you. Next question. What research projects are you currently working on, and how did you choose? How did you go about choosing a research advisor? I think some of you touched on how you went about choosing a research advisor, but if you want to talk a little bit about some of the research you're excited about doing, or how you came about doing the research that you're currently working on.
I can start us off.
Go for it.
So I do fluid dynamics research, which is an incredibly broad topic, of course, but basically what we've been focusing on is buoyancy driven flows. So the main application is wildfires or pool fires. So wildfire, you have hot gas, low, which is hot. So then it's lower density. So it rises and it drives a whole bunch of different fluid dynamic instabilities. And so we've simplified the problem of like wildfire and other reacting flows to some very, very simple academic, if you would like to call it, configuration, and basically studying and understanding the fluid dynamics within that particular configuration. For finding a research advisor, I had reached out to Dr. Hamilton early on in the process, and we got along well, and he liked the research that I was doing at the time, and I liked the research that he was doing at the time, and it all seemed to work out in the end.
Thank you. And some of you might have joined us in a previous panel about the PhD application. Dr. Hamilton is also a graduate chair. So.
I can go in after. So I came from a very different background than what I'm currently doing research on right now. I was doing biomechanics, slip research specifically. So I was looking at how to prevent slips, trips, and falls in specifically workplace areas. So like I don't know, hospital or manufacturing plants or things like that. So that's what I was working on. And then I've always been interested in biomechanics, but I didn't really have that knowledge of robotics. And I felt like there was this huge crossover, especially with soft robotics, between that biomechanics field and traditional robotics. And so I just thought it was really interesting and decided it would be a great challenge for myself to learn those skills like controls and materials and manufacturing and sensor integration in like these large systems. So that was really useful for me. And I think graduation, I can take those skills and apply it to stuff that has been driving me towards biomechanics, like prosthetics and orthotics. So yeah, it was a huge crossover for me, but I really liked it.
Thank you, Vani.
I can jump into. So I found my research advisor, Greg Whiting, very early on, similar to Mike, where I felt like the earlier that I did it, the easier it was to kind of line things up and get the ball rolling. And then in terms of my research, I focused, the whole lab is an additive manufacturing lab, and a lot of electronics, functional printing. However, for me, I'm more interested in more structural printing and specifically looking for wind turbines and wind turbine generators. And that's also another reason for Boulder, because Boulder has a lot of renewable energy research that's going on here. And so, yeah, so I'm looking at renewable energy research on the additive manufacturing.
Thank you. All right, one more response and then we'll move on to the next question. Who wants this one?
No. So I'm working with control of soft robots. And right now, I don't know if you guys know, I'm working with Hazels. They're like little squishy robot actuators that you can configure into a robot, say like an octopus arm. So I'm working with those and I'm working on modeling those empirically and then trying to figure out a good control law for them so that we can start seeing soft robots in the real world.
All right, thank you, Angie. And Sarah, you're going to have to start the next one. So the next question is, actually, before I do that, thank you so much for audience members putting questions in the chat. I saw one that I can quickly answer. The GRE is no longer required to apply to our program. So that should save a lot of you a lot of time, money, and stress. So you can apply to the program without taking the GRE. And also keep the questions coming. We will get to them. I have 3 more questions to ask our panelists. And after that, we will stop recording and we will get to all the questions in the chat. So go ahead and pop them in there, or you can wait till that portion. So our next question is, I wanted to talk a little bit about balancing work, life, school. So can you talk a little bit about how you balance classes, research obligations, and also having some quality of life. And also talk about like, maybe something the fun that you do for in Boulder or activities that you enjoy in your downtime. Sarah, we're going to start with you since you didn't answer the last one. Go for it.
Okay. So I think it is easy to get lost in research, especially when you're in the thick of it. And then that's the priority, of course. So balance is key, though. I mean, you cannot just focus on one thing, and because you cannot be result oriented on a daily basis in PhD. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So some days you would end up getting nothing, and then you still need to get going with your day. So in such kind of situations, you need other things like maybe physical activities or your friends or something along those lines. For me, a good workout in the rec center here or the gym gets me going for the day, and I'm pumped with that. On other days, I just go hiking, or with my friends, I just play a game of soccer. But of course, yeah. When I get time, I focus on research, most of it. And yeah, being my third year, I have to drive it on my own because no one else coming to help me with my research. Of course, your advisor will be there. I'm talking about just finding the next step in your plan. So that's how I go about it. Balance, I guess that's the main thing.
Yeah, balance is key. I know Mike and Austin like to meet up and take pictures of the mountains.
Austin and I have met up and swum before.
Yeah, that's true.
For me, I think that the biggest thing, I think I didn't realize this until my second year, but I was really like just working like as hard as I possibly could for doing school, like classes and stuff. And I found that although I was like working particularly sometimes like late in the evening, I found that I made a ton of mistakes late in the evening, and I would spend like way more time the next day trying to figure out what I did wrong than if I were to just have like actually just put my computer away at like 9 p.m. and gone to bed and like reoriented and refocused the next morning. And so like that's kind of how I like whenever I think I don't have time to like exercise or do something, I always think to myself, well, am I going to feel better? Am I going to like meet friends, like hang out with other people, like enjoy my life a bit more? And the answer is usually yes. And so then usually that means it's something that I should probably take advantage of, especially being in the area. Like I do triathlon pretty competitively. So I am out riding my bike, running, swimming, sometimes with Austin, and just trying to find a good balance between everything.
I think one really awesome part about doing a PhD is that you get to choose your own schedule. So some hours you'll be working 20 hours a week on research, others you'll be working 80 hours a week. And it's really, I think for me, it helped me a lot when I understood that. So as soon as I realized I didn't have to work 40 hours a week if I don't have anything to do, I spent those weeks out and about. So I do a lot of activities, and I definitely work those in this summer. And then I recently just had a paper due. So then I spent those 2 weeks just at my computer day after day. But some of the activities I do, one thing that's really unique to Colorado, we have crazy access to highlining, which is something I really like. I also found out that if I join activities that have a time slot, I make those time slots work. So I'll drop my research and then start it back up after I get back home. So for that, I joined a breakdancing class that I do weekly, and then I have sand volleyball scheduled throughout the week as well.
Thank you. And can the next Vani, if you could talk a little bit also about, how do you manage the pressure of deadlines as well? Because I think right now we're focusing on the balance, like the fun part, but and research is fun too, and so are classes. But if you could talk about how you manage some of that as well.
Yeah, this actually kind of goes off of what Angie said, like having those scheduled times in your schedule while you will have 20-hour work weeks and then 80-hour work weeks. It's really important to schedule those time slots out for like, I'm going to be working on research from this time to this time. And then after that, I can like go swimming for an hour and then come back and keep working. But I think especially when the deadlines come up, that becomes really important. Like I have 3 different planners and I live off my Google Calendar. And if it's not in my calendar, it just doesn't exist. And I think it's really important for me to sit down at the beginning of each week and say, what do I need to get done? And when do I need to get that done by? And then start prioritizing. And then it makes it a lot easier for me to say like, okay, I know I'm going to be tired after working 12 hours during the day. Can I segment that and work like 6 hours and then go do music and then come back and work another 6 hours? So I think for me, it's really important for scheduling because those deadlines will sneak up on you. And with research, science doesn't work your way all the time, right? So you need to schedule in these like flex days of, if my experiment doesn't work the way that I want it to, I can't come up to this deadline and say I don't have the data that I need. But that said, like deadlines are always going to come and go. If you miss a deadline, it's not the end of the world. It feels like it is, but it really isn't because there will be more to come. But you need to figure out like how to rank those deadlines in terms of importance between you and your advisor. It needs to be this constant open communication of like, here's the realistic approach for me to meet this deadline or to not meet it and make another one.
Thank you very much. We're getting lots of questions in the chat. One that I quickly want to address before we move on to the next question is you do not need to have to secure an advisor before coming to the program. It is a good idea to reference, maybe a couple in your purpose statement whose research you're interested in. And then a lot of we will admit students without advisors. So anyone who is admitted to the program will be offered funding at the same time. And then you have some time to find an advisor after that point. So I just wanted to quickly address that because that's been coming up. All right. Thank you so much, Bonnie, for responding to that and talking about balance. Organization is freedom. I love the calendar example. Very important. You're doing a lot and balancing and keeping track of everything. It's important to find a system. Time management is really important. Okay, so the next question I have, we have 2 more questions and then we will get to all these wonderful questions in the chat. So there's a stigma that some people are aware of that Boulder is really expensive and sometimes that stops people from coming to the program. In your experience, can you talk about how you manage your time in the program in terms of how did you find housing and how you are able to still have a decent, a quality of life and enjoy your time while a PhD student, while of course doing work and research and all of that?
I can start with that one. So for me, housing, in terms of housing my first year, it was hard to find roommates, I think was the biggest thing. And I think if I would have done it again, I would have started earlier to find roommates. And that is definitely the best way to make housing cheaper. And then after that, moving away from, say, property management people and going to a rented house was also a big plus. But I would say in general, the other question too is if you live in Boulder or outside of Boulder, which is something probably that Angie could touch upon better. But that's definitely one way to keep costs a little bit lower. But yeah, I would say roommates for sure, the first one, and then looking into maybe living a little outside of Boulder. But all in all, in terms of percentage of total salary, right, it's definitely higher than if I were to live in Kansas or somewhere else like that, a little bit more obscure. But it's still enough, the salary is enough to pay for both housing and other activities I'd want to do.
Yeah, I'd say, so I found my first roommates for my PhD at Gears, which is really cool. So I lived with my lab mates, which had its pros and cons. We were able to work on projects together at home, which is awesome. We never stopped really talking about research, which was not the greatest. But so that was really awesome. It was a really cool way to meet my roommates. And I found people that were doing the same things as me. And then after that, I got a dog. And so I needed a fenced-in backyard. And thus I moved outside of Boulder to be able to afford that. So I currently live in Louisville, which is a 10-minute drive to CU Boulder.
kind of on top of what Angie was saying, my first year and through actually my first 4 years, I lived in a house which was substantially less expensive than like trying to rent an apartment, even with like a roommate. And that was really helpful in the cost. And I think one other thing too is you can find roommates pretty easily within the department with people moving in as long as you communicate early. But also Boulder is generally like a younger population, and I actually didn't live with anyone who was a PhD student or master's student, but everyone was like interested in sports and we got along super well. So that is also something that you can do in the Boulder area.
Laura, we haven't heard from you. Would you like to touch on this question?
I found my housing on Ralphie's list, and I came up with like an awesome landlord, which is very important, and some awesome roommates as well. I would like to stay away from my department because I mean, in terms of roommates, because I want to meet more people. I'm here to make more friends from different departments, and that's one thing I like about the university. You get to meet a lot of people from creative backgrounds, MBA backgrounds. Right now, one of my roommate is a DFA or a PhD in music. I get music nights almost every day here, and just suits me to the night. I just go off to sleep, and he's still playing. So I've been living here since the start of my PhD. That's like for the last 2.5 years. So no complaints. As long as you're able to secure a housing under $800, I think the stipend that the department pays is pretty good to actually lead a good quality of life here. And also, Boulder town is pretty safe any time of the day. I like to think that way at least. And so I kind of enjoy here.
Thank you. And I think with housing, you heard Ralphie's list. The program works with you to, once you receive admission, to send out resources. We connect you with current students. So housing is always a question that comes up. So we try to make sure that you're careful when you find places to live, talk to people, talk to other roommates, get to know people. But there is a bit of a sense of adventure, like Sarah mentioned, in terms of meeting new people and learning about different activities that happen on campus through your roommates. So, all right, final question, and then we'll go to all of these questions in the Q&A. Please share, we're gonna go around and hear from everybody. And Vani, I'd love for you to get us started. Please share one piece of advice for PhDs considering applying to the program that we haven't talked about yet. Maybe it's something in the chat, or maybe it's something that you feel like, I wish someone would have told me this, or I'm glad someone told me about this when I was looking at applying to PhD programs.
I think so I was coming straight from undergrad, and I had a very different advisor as an undergraduate student than I do now as a graduate student. So I think somebody had told me a couple months in to establish my professional relationship with my advisor in terms of expectations on both ends, my expectations of him and his expectations of me. That was extremely useful because I feel like while we got along on just a casual level, there were a lot of things professionally that I assumed that he thought of me and he assumed that I thought of him. So it was great to just have that very open conversation at the beginning. And I'm glad that somebody told me that.
Thank you. And before we move on to the next person, I saw some questions in the chat about advisors. You do not have to have a conversation with a faculty member to be admitted. And during most of our applicants will be interviewed via Zoom. So anybody who is admitted will be interviewed via Zoom first. That's our first round of review. We'll review your applications and then you'll receive an interview. And during those Zoom interviews, those are some great times. That's a really great opportunity to ask questions and different things like that. So thank you for that response. Talking about expectations on both sides, very important. Because you'll be working, this is basically your boss. So you'll be working with them for a while. So it's important to have good communication.
I think my small piece of advice would be to make sure that you're doing what you like. It's going to be a long road. And if you don't like what you're doing day to day, like maybe not day to day, but like the overall objective. If you don't love that, then I would suggest like trying something else. And we generally switch advisors. That's pretty common within our department, which is unique and allows that kind of opportunity. So make sure that you're doing whatever you decide to do, whether you apply and come to CU or whatever you're doing else for whatever in the future.
Can I just unmute and ask a question?
Sure, we will, we'll wait till everyone finishes this question, and then we would love to hear your question after that, if you wouldn't mind waiting a minute.
Sure.
I'll go before I run out of pieces of advice to share because Bonnie and Mike took two of mine. I would just say, going into your PhD, it's not about what you know, right? Like Bonnie changed subjects completely. So it's not about how much you know in the area. It's really about how much you or how motivated you are, and how badly you want to do what you're going to be doing. So just keep that in mind when you're applying. Don't apply to subject areas where like you know everything. Apply to the ones that are interesting to you and the ones you're highly motivated for.
Thank you.
I can jump in. My advice would be to start early with things, whether it's housing, professors, etc. I've always found and have found in hindsight that the earlier that I start something, the better off my result will be, and more importantly, the less stress that I'll be as I do it.
Thank you. And then one last final round, and then we'll get to all the wonderful questions we're getting. Go ahead, Sarah. I think we'd love to hear from you. What's your advice?
Closing remarks, I think,
Yes.
I mean, during my bachelor's, I felt like I could just coast through, sometimes even mindlessly, but then PhD, there are spots when you actually have to get into the topic deep. And during those times, you really can only bank on your passion and curiosity in the topic, and nothing else gets you going. So be sure what you're getting into. And so I guess the topic and your relation with the advisor is very important. Like it cannot be stressed enough.
Thank you so much to our panelists. I really appreciate you taking the time to answer these questions and just giving us a part of your day. If you're watching this recording, if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me at megrad, that's MEGRAD, at colorado.edu, and I'd be happy to respond to you.